Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Sadasiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. I think I was telling you about the interpretation of the text by ascertaining the tatparya. The Nyayika, the course of his explanation of Shabda Pramana, takes up the problem of what may be called construing the Vakyartha, the meaning of the sentence. We speak of the word meaning, padartha, the sentence meaning, Vakyartha. The analysis of the word meaning is itself a complicated issue. We are not taking it up now. Probably if there is a course on Vyakarana, that will be taken care of. And subtle issues in the Nyaya, in fact, the institute held a course on separately on Nyaya and Mimamsa. Our focus is on the Vedanta, but still, whatever is ancillary to that, we also take care of it. So, how to construe the meaning? I was telling you that in the Indian tradition, in the Vedic tradition, attention was paid to all these disciplines. Though the focus may be on Vedanta, but still the supporting disciplines are necessary. Therefore, we have Nyaya, we have Mimamsa, we have Vyakarana. So the Nyayika says that when we have to construe the meaning of a sentence, we have to consider it may be a spoken sentence or it may be a written one. All these things are necessary. There is such a thing called akanksha or expectancy, yogyada or fitness or appropriateness, sometimes they use the word. Then proximity, sannidhi or asati they call it. Then tatparya. Usually we consider the context when we want to ascertain the tatparya. Supposing the young boy in his adolescence, he says that I would go and have dinner with somebody. The father tells him, don't go. He doesn't tell him don't go. Well, you can as well eat poison or something. He expresses his disapproval, not directly saying, but indirectly. From the context, it means not that he wants the boy to drink poison and commit suicide. No, it's not the intention. The tatparya, the context, this is what it means. We call somebody as lion-like in his courage. From the context, we have to understand the tatparya. Now, I supplemented it by saying that, but in the Vedanta tradition, when we have to construe the meaning of a sentence, we consider the syntax. The problem is with regard to semantics, how to construe the meaning. Semantics is a discipline which is concerned with the problem of meaning. And when it is not the Laukika text, even there we have to be very careful. Even when we want to interpret a text, secular text, I don't know, it's very difficult to say whether there is really a secular text which goes through various periods of time. There are. Even with regard to the secular text, you have to carefully interpret the text, and not in any way you like. And with regard to the scriptural text, proper attention is needed. In the Advaita tradition, we say that there are 6 marks by means of which we can ascertain the Tatparya. Tatparya lingas, they say, 6 of them. The first one is the beginning and the end. See the Upakram Upasamhara. That's the first one. Then repetition. Then novelty. Apurvata. Novelty is apurvata. Repetition is abhyasa. Then phala, the fruit. What is the result? And then arthavada. Exaggeration. Either by way of praise or by way of censure or condemnation. And finally, upavati, intelligibility. We have to make it quite intelligible or reasonably acceptable, any view that we project. I said that is very important. And I was fond of quoting Gadamer, the person who in recent times brought to the notice of all scholars interested in textual interpretation the importance of hermeneutics. And I used the 2 expressions, the horizon of the text and the horizon of the reader or hearer. I have my own horizon. That is the horizon of the text, which has traveled through time. It is an ageless text, moving through periods of time, through the span of time. The text is ageless, and it goes through the different periods of time. That is the case with regard to the Vedic text. The same is there with regard to even the Western tradition. There are texts, timeless. In other words, I would say that these scriptural texts have to be interpreted properly without doing violence to the text. There are 2 problems in the interpretation. We are likely to offend the text in 2 ways. I am deliberately using the word offend the text in 2 ways. One is called Sruta Hani. Sruta Hani. The other is called Asruta Kalpana. Asruta Kalpana. Sruta Hani and Asruta Kalpana. Sruta Hani is doing injury, offense, violence to what is explicitly stated. The Vachyartha itself is very clear. The primary meaning is very clear. Vachyartha is primary meaning. Vachyartha or Mukhyartha. Mukhyartha, Vachyartha, primary meaning, explicit meaning. That itself is very clear. And if you don't pay attention to what is explicitly stated, if you ignore the Mukhyartha or the Vachyartha, Mukhyartha, Vachyartha, otherwise called Mukhyartha, Mukhyartha, Vachyartha, explicit meaning, very outward meaning. That is clear. You say that I will ignore this because it is inconvenient to the interpreter. That is one kind of violence that we commit in the interpretation. Then asruta kalpana, what is not warranted by the text, what is not really there in the text, either by way of explicit meaning or implied meaning, you suggest something else. Asruta, what is not stated, kalpana, projection. You project something which is not there, which is not stated. Therefore, we say it is asruta kalpana. We have to avoid these two dangers in the interpretation of the classical text. When we exercise the freedom to interpret, we are bound by certain restrictions. They have given the way by means of which we can ascertain the tatparya. In spite of all that, sometimes we may commit this offense of wrong interpretation. Generally, we say that these are the two, Sruta Hani and Asruta Kalpana. That is why we say that in the commentarial tradition plays an important role. And the entire commentarial tradition, whether it is Bhamadi tradition, Vivarna tradition, they operate within the framework. Already there is a framework. You don't go outside the framework. Remaining within the framework of the tradition, and the framework is a very solid one. Within the framework, you can try to give the interpretation, then you will not go against the basic thesis. Basic thesis being the case of Advaita, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo, Brahma Ivana Paraga. You have. Then you play within the framework. Therefore, we have sometimes we talk about Vartikikara tradition, Bhamadi tradition, Vivarana tradition. So it goes on. I don't think that I have to stretch that at this point, because beyond the Nyaya, I have gone there. I have given also from the Advaita point of view, because it's a question of textual interpretation. Anything you require for clarification here? No.
But secular text, can include text like Arthashastra?
You can include. For example, Tirukkural we can say. It's a secular text, much more than secular. That's why I said that within inverted commas. A text which has gone through several ages. It is not just a didactic work, something more than that. Arthashastra, it is such a text which requires careful interpretation. Usually, I don't know whether you have heard of this statement of Bacon. Men mark when they hit and not when they miss. If you hit the target, you draw the attention of so many people. If there is something convenient to you, you say this has been stated in the Arthashastra. You mark the attention of others. Look here. This is the view of the Arthashastrakara. And when something is inconvenient, you will denounce it, because you miss your target there. So, with a particular bias, if one begins to interpret the text to serve one's own purpose, then you go against the canons of interpretation. Particularly with regard to the scriptural text, one has to be careful. I am very cautious when I use the word scriptural text. Texts which are accepted as preserving the tradition, enriching the tradition, creating the tradition to grow, to develop. And tradition is not static. This is how I look at it. It's not static. The core element may be static, but in the periphery there are changes that are taking place. In any tradition, what the name? If such changes do not take place, the tradition becomes rigid, it will pass away. So the vitality of a tradition depends not only upon the core element which remains the same. For us, the reality is only one, that is the core element. But in the periphery, changes may take place. Take, for example, Shastrigal. How do you classify him? A traditionalist, yes. A modern, equally yes. In the periphery, several changes have taken place. You can't hide them, shut them, avoid them. I will also add one more point here in this context. I have great admiration for the Kyoto school, Kyoto, Japanese school, Kyoto school. It's a very vibrating school that we have in Japan. Kyoto school, the Kyoto school. The Kyoto school has got three important principles. The first one is loyalty to the tradition. Loyalty to the tradition. இந்த கொடை எங்க இருந்து எடுத்துட்டீங்களா? Please. Just remove that. Thank you. The loyalty to the tradition. The second principle, openness to the other traditions. Openness to other traditions. And then, where possible, make a synthesis of your own tradition with what is compatible with it from other traditions. Synthesis with one's own tradition with what is compatible with its own tradition. I have been telling that it is necessary for the scholars in India, I am talking about philosophy area, domain, that they have to follow in our own way the basic principles of the Kyoto school. Loyalty to the tradition. There is no point in saying, I don't know anything about my tradition. And it is a shame that academics in the departments of philosophy in India, they say that they don't know. They heard about Bhagavad Gita, they don't know. They heard about Prasthanatraya, they can't mention what works are included in the Prasthanatraya. Some basic words. Loyalty to the tradition. You don't know anything about the tradition. And they are very eager to go outside and teach. What will they teach? If I teach at Wittgenstein in the continent or in Oxford, nobody will listen to me. Nor can I teach that in USA. I can't teach Gadamer or Heidegger or any of these people. There are scholars there. That is their area. But I can be strong in my area. If anybody challenges, now this is what Shankara said, supposing there is a wrong interpretation, I may say no. This is what Gautama says, Nyaya says, I must say no. I must be familiar with that. The loyalty to the tradition. Openness to other traditions. And you can condemn academics in this country as well as elsewhere. On the second issue, openness to other traditions. Our scholars go and work there, collaborate with them. They are not interested in studying philosophy, Indian philosophy. Take Strawson. Many scholars had worked with him, Indians, closely following him. Should we not even casually pay attention to, we have invited him to our country, Strawson from Oxford. And we published his lectures here. But I would like to tell you that I don't have any kind of a reason to feel sorry or anything with regard to all these people. Because as I told you, I've been trained in Stanford. Now, the openness to the other traditions, at least in a limited area, he is so much interested in perception, problem of perception. We have very sophisticated discussions on the various issues in perception. That is not study of scripture. There is a common area. Openness to other traditions. The third one is synthesis wherever it is possible. I try to have our tradition, interpretative tradition. Here is Gadamer or Heidegger. I say, look at this. It tries to strengthen. Not that I can replace our traditional interpretations by the one given by Gadamer or somebody. You have a sense of satisfaction that you are going in the right track. The tradition is the right track. What else could we do? These are the ideals of the Kyoto school. Now, the reason why I mentioned that here is that without giving up our tradition, our ways of life means philosophical outlook and all that one, changes are bound to take place. But the core element can be kept alive. Whatever may be the changes in the periphery. Any comment? Any response? Any response? When a traditional text is, I can't teach philosophy in India ignoring the traditional text. whatever may be the school, be it Mimamsa or Nyaya or Buddhism, Jainism. Is it possible to teach Buddhism without being aware of the texts in Buddhism? I don't think so. So, the reason why I mentioned that is the Kyoto school, now it is absolutely necessary for us, particularly who are doing the work of teaching, to have a sense of loyalty to the tradition, openness to other schools. I must open my mind and see what is taking place elsewhere. I cannot remain a closed book. And then synthesis of the views which are compatible with our tradition as far as possible. Synthesis doesn't mean abandoning our views and adopting something else. A comparative study. I will stop with that. Then I will move on to the issue about the physical world of the Nyaya, Nyayika. The same as the Vaisesika. We will talk about it. And there are things in the world, and then the classification is given. We will take it up when we come to the Vaisesika. Then the Nyaya school tries to give arguments for the existence of God, or proofs for the existence of God. I said Nyaya theory, the physical world, substance, qualities. We will wait for the Vaisesika. Jiva theory, Jiva and its liberation. I given indicated generally. I will come to that one. Proofs for the existence of God. This is almost an important section in any philosophical system which has got a theistic outlook. In the West also they have formulated various arguments. There are standard arguments. Correspondingly, we do have arguments formulated in the Nyaya school by Udayana. There was a need for formulating these arguments. I should say that in this context, opinions may differ. Now, a question that is frequently asked is, why is it that Buddhism, which is so strong in other places, has disappeared, has vanished, or has declined? Use any word you like. The minimum forceful word is declined. Why? Now, there have been two important problems in the tradition. One is regarding the scriptural text, the Vedic text. The other is regarding admission of God. Now, in Buddhism, there is no place for the Vedic text. It's a non-Vedic school, I said in the beginning itself. There is no place for God. And I used to say that what has been sent out through the front door has been brought back through the back door. We sent out God from the front door. But Buddha himself has been worshipped as a God. Go to places like Bangkok. Now, the issue is not about the worship of Buddha, such a great person. It's not that issue. Why is it that it declined? The way in which Buddhism has been able to spread in other countries, Jainism has not been able to do. It is restricted to India almost. In some pockets in India. Though in Tamil Nadu at one time, both Buddhism and Jainism were prevalent, very strong. They had the royal patronage. Now, the Mimamsakas made a great contribution towards answering all the basic objections of the other schools. regarding the text, particularly the part played by Kumarila Bhatta, who is said to be the Vartikikara in the Mimamsa tradition. He wrote Shloka Vartika, Tantra Vartika, and the way in which he dealt with this issue against the Buddhists for the support of the Vedic tradition is marvelous, they say. The story goes, as some of you might have known, that he became a disguised Buddhist, went to a teacher, learned all about Buddhism, and came out, and for the sin that he has, papa that he has incurred, because he told a lie and then learned the system and then came out. The story goes that he wanted to commit immolations. He sat in the burning fire, and then he was slowly dying. And the story goes that there was Shankara had met him, and when he found that he was in such a condition, then Kumarila Bhatta advised him to go and meet Mandana Mishra, his brother-in-law, and then if he could win him, then it is as good as he has won him. Then he went to Mandana Mishra. That is the story. So, Mimamsa system contributed a lot to the preservation of the tradition. That is one thing. And Udayana, the Nyaya, who came in the tradition, and he also contributed to the preservation of the tradition. He took up the case with regard to God. He formulated arguments, Udayana's arguments. Usually, if you look at the West, they have one kind of an argument known as the ontological argument. Ontological proof. It's not really proof. Argument to show that really we have to accept God. But they use a strong word, proof. How can we prove God? We can only formulate certain arguments to show that yes, there is such a being called God. Ontological argument. Then there is the causal argument. Now let me tell ontological argument, then I go to causal argument, because correspondingly we can look at whether we have such arguments. What are the arguments that the Nyaya system has formulated? This is a very traditional argument. Saint Anselm formulated this in the medieval period in the West. Saint Anselm. It was again formulated in the modern period by Descartes. In fact, modern philosophy begins with Descartes, they say. Descartes, the French thinker. In mathematics, there is a Cartesian theorem and all that. They were all mathematicians. French word, they say pronunciations, Descartes. He formulated this ontological argument. It is not entirely new, but it is one that follows closely St. Anselm. The argument is very simple. Descartes says, he said Descartes, I have an idea of God as the most perfect being. An idea of God as the most perfect being. How is it I have such an idea? I have not seen anything perfect in the world. I can't trace how I get this idea of a perfect being. I have such an idea. and I have to find out the source of this idea. Usually we say that corresponding to our idea there are objects. There is some kind of a correspondence between the ideas that we have and the things of the world. There is some correspondence. The idea is in our mind. There are objects corresponding to them. But anyhow, this is an idea I have. How did I have this one? And I could not have had this idea unless there is such a perfect being. That perfect being, perfection includes everything. Not only perfection in qualities, but also perfection includes existence. Such a being must exist. Otherwise, it can't be a perfect being. Purely by ideas, by the concepts that I have. There is the argument of St. Anselm, there is the argument of Descartes. I have such an idea. Perfection is total perfection. Perfection not only with regard to some qualities, with regard to knowledge or anything else. Perfection includes also existence. A being which lacks existence cannot be perfect. But I have such an idea, correspondingly such a being must exist. This has been criticized. Because you have an idea, does it mean, this is the criticism given by Kant subsequently, because you have an idea, does it mean that corresponding to that there must be a reality? I imagine that I have $1,000 in my pocket. I imagine. I have that idea. Because I have that idea, does it mean that in my pocket I have $1,000? To have an idea is one thing. To talk about the existence of an entity in the world of space-time causality is something different. So the ontological argument cannot be accepted. They have defended. My point is not to show that whether Descartes was right or Kant was right. Such an argument has been formulated. I know that my senior colleagues, Vaisesika and others, used to tell, why our scripture also contains references to, in the lives of the mystics, you find that they have entertained such an idea and they sought after the reality as indicated by that idea. Many people do that one. Well, in our own times, our contemporary Ramana moved from Madurai area to Tiruvannamalai in search of the reality, answering the call of Arunachala. Now, many instances can be given. And my senior colleague, Vaisesika, used to tell that, yes, put it also in writing, that it is not out of the way for the Indian mind, the mystical tradition particularly, spiritual mystical tradition, to say that, yes, certainly we can accept what is called this ontological argument. That is one thing. A causal argument. Every phenomenon requires a cause. How does it come into existence? Unless there is a cause. The world must be an effect. First argument step. If it is an effect, it must have a cause. Without a cause, nothing happens here. The world exists. There must be a cause. Such a cause must be an omniscient being, an omnipotent being, and all that one. Correspondingly, we have the Nyaya also. That is what is generally called the causal argument. To trace every event to its cause, finally to trace the whole entire world to its cause. We do in the Vedanta tradition also, when we take up the theory of creation, Panchabhutas, you come to the Panchabhutas, Sarstrigal made a reference, how you resolve the effect in its cause. When you come to the 5 elements, you start from the earth, resolve it in its cause, water, resolve water in its cause, fire, resolve it in Tejas, Agni, in its cause, then in Akasha. Trace all that to Maya. Maya, don't try to trace that one, the cause of Maya, it is Anadi. Once you have that elimination, Maya ceases to be. This is a method of resolving the effect in its cause. This is not something new. Let me quote, even though it's a Tamil text, I quote that one. How Tirukkural, Swamiji. எப்பொருள் எத்தன்மைத்தாயினும் அப்பொருள் மெய்ப்பொருள் காண்பது அறிவு. Parimelazhagar, when he writes the commentary on this Tirukkural, says, Parimelazhagar means analogy. That's why I refer to Sruta Hani and Asruta Kalpana, the two great offenses that we commit when we interpret the text. Whatever be the object that you examine, that you see, whatever it may be, எப்பொருள் எத்தன்மைத்தாயினும், don't bother about what it is, let it be anything. See the மெய்ப்பொருள், the reality in it. The other day, as I was telling somebody, Guru Maharaj, if you are in it, inotakamas. And the porul, if you are in it, you are everywhere. You have to be in it. But I am only in my body, not in it. If I could be in it, then I am everywhere. Because it is everywhere, then I am also everywhere. Now, let that be any object. Tanmaitayinam apporul மெய்ப்பொருள் காண்பது அறிவு. It is the truth, to see the reality in it. And in the commentary, Parimelazhagar says, what we have to do is, we must proceed from the effect. Try to resolve it in its cause. Resolve that in its cause. Try to go backwards in the causal series. Is there in the commentary? Read it. Then, the final terminal point where you end your journey, this pursuit, intellectual pursuit journey, that terminal point is a reality beyond which you cannot proceed. There is no cause for that. It is uncaused cause. Aristotle expression, uncaused cause. It is a final mover, unmoved mover. There is no mover for God. Unmoved mover. Final cause, uncast cause. The first being, first reality. Then only reality really. Because all the effects have been resolved in the final cause. Nothing is left out. Now, so the causal argument has played a vital role in all the philosophical traditions, East and West. Then there is the moral argument. Moral argument. Well, the moral argument suggests that all of us as rational agents, this is what I have been saying, once you grant that human being is a rational being, he cannot but pursue this end. As a moral being, he accepts responsibility for what he is. As an individual, as a member of the society, he bears a responsibility. That kind of a moral argument is given to show that how every human being, having this wonderful equipment, namely the power of reasoning, should be able to proceed further as a moral being, accepting responsibility. There is also the teleological argument. Teleological argument. Telos, T-E-L-O-S, telos, is the end, the goal. And we want to lead not only a meaningful life, but a purposive life. The other day when I was talking about the real significance of the Panchakosha theory, which suggests a kind of a spiritual ascendance in the value system. So there is a telos of the goal to realize the being in me, the ultimate being. This is what the Upanishad says, Satyasya Sittam Satyam, the truth of truth, the light of lights. There is this goal. This is what they call the teleological argument. These are standard arguments that we have. Correspondingly, we have the arguments in the Nyaya system by Udayana. I have given 4 of them. First, I mentioned the causal argument. The causal argument in the case of Nyaya, that is in page 7, 13, number 13, is the end of the Nyaya system. The causal argument in the case of the Nyaya, it considers God only as the efficient cause. You can even say this is what may be called nimitta karanavada. There are 2 kinds of causes, material cause and the efficient cause. Material cause, we call it upadana karana. I don't use the Nyaya term upadana karana. Upadana karana. Efficient cause, nimitta karana. Nimitta karana. Upadana karana. God is not the upadana karana for the Nyayika, because there are eternal elements. They have not been created by God. You are there. Don't ask the question, how is it that they came into existence? They are eternal. Just as a carpenter, being only an efficient cause, selects the material, shapes it, has a design or a plan, and then tries to carve the block of wood into a particular shape. That is what he does. He is not responsible for the wood or the material. It's given to him, he is selected, and then he works on it, serves as the efficient cause. Even so, God is only the efficient cause, not the material cause. Whereas the Vedantin would say that God is abhinna, nimitta, upadana karana. Both the karanas rolled into one. Abhinna, not separate. In other cases, wood is the material cause, upadana karana. Carpenter is the efficient cause, nimitta karana. The 2 are separate. And Udayana drops the materiality because it is eternal, it is there already. The Panchapudas are there and other things are there. They are eternal. And the Vaisesika also accepts all that. They are partners. But the Vedantin, I think including the other Vedantins, by some kind of a proper interpretation, we can say that even Ramanuja's system, Vaisesika subscribes to this principle of abhinna nimitta upadana karana. Little more difficult in the case of Dvaita, but even then we could shape it, because everything is dependent upon Brahman. The classification is that which is Swatantra and that which is Paratantra. It is dependent. Not like the Nyaya system where The things of the world, they exist independently of God. They don't say they are paratantra. But anyhow, the Advaitin says that Brahman is both material and efficient cause rolled into one. The sutra Janmadhyasya Yataha, second sutra, Shankara interprets it in both the senses. But for the Nyayika, for Udayana, it is only the efficient cause. That's why I told you that the late Professor Raghavacharya of the Mysore University says the Nyaya system is thinly theistic. Remember the expression. Many times I use. Thinly theistic. Theistic, but not fully theistic. Thinly theistic, because the Upadana Karanatva has been dropped. That is one kind of argument that we have. There is the second argument, which I have given as the purposive argument. Purposive argument. Prayojaka karta. God is only prayojaka karta. Purposive argument means that the world has got a purpose. The world, including the human beings, has got a purpose. And it is towards a certain goal that the entire universe is proceeding. And we have to reach the goal. The ways have been suggested. So, God fulfills a certain moral purpose in the life of beings which can take advantage of the fact that they are rational beings and moral agents and all that one. So that is one kind of an argument that has been formulated in the system. Then, like other systems also, the Nyayika says we require a paladata, a giver of the fruits of actions, dispenser of justice. You can use any expression you like. Sometimes they say dispenser of justice or giver of the fruits of actions. That is the principle of karma, the theory of karma. There is also the concept of adrishta. There is such a thing called, the term adrishta has been used in the system. Adrishta, the stock of merit and demerit of every individual. Adrishta. Adrishta. Just as the Mimamsa uses the term apurva, adrishta, the stock of merit and demerit. We are engaged in various kinds of actions, good and bad. Sometimes we reap the fruits of the actions immediately, sometimes in a delayed way, sometimes not in this life. It's a rigorous moral principle, law of karma. Nobody can escape the rigor of the principle. One has to reap the consequences, good consequences for good actions and bad consequences for bad actions. But who is responsible for controlling this principle of karma, theory of law of karma? It is God. So he is a dispenser of justice. Such an argument also has been given as paladata, like the Mimamsa system, like the Vedanta system. Then we have scriptural argument. This is very interesting. We accept the existence of God. Why? Because scripture says so. It's stated in the scripture. So on the authority of scripture, we say, yes, there is such a being. But then they ask the question, who is the author of scripture? The Vedic text. Who is the author? God. Ishvara. The Mimamsakas answer this question in one particular way. The Vedantins answer in some other way. The Vedantins say that it is eternal, but it is being released at the time of every creation. Just as we bring out a new reprint of the old book. This is how Hiriyanaya gives their explanation. We bring out a reprint. Similarly, Ishvara is responsible of bringing a reprint of the Veda. He is not the author of the Veda. A new edition, a new creation, a new edition. So that is the eternality of the Veda. Ishvara also is given an important role for ensuring that it is available every time. I don't go into the cycle of creation, and it is beyond my comprehension. It is beyond my worry. Shastrigal was talking about so many things. I am so much concerned about what is left for me, so that I can try to achieve whatever I can achieve, taking advantage of the least that I have. So that larger issue I will not take up at any time. We have such a scriptural text, and we say it is apaurushaya, not the composition of Ishvara. But how did we have it? Did he not have a role? Yes, probably he has a role. When he has got a role with regard to other things, why should he not have a role here with regard to issuing a new edition, not a changed edition? The text is the same, reprint. Probably it is the case. A lesser objective that I have in mind, that I suggest is, yes, we can accept the text. How old is the text? We don't know. Who is sure about the date of the text? Conveniently, we say it is aparushaya. It is anadi. Two ideas we combine. Aparushaya without any author. Who is the author? If there is an author, nameable author, then it is not Shruti but Smriti. However exalted and great Bhagavad Gita may be, it is only a Smriti text. There is a divine author. Human or divine, if there is an author for a text, the tradition says it is a Smriti text. There is also Shruti. I am not interested in the translation. I recently received a book by an Indian teaching in USA, questioning whether we are right in translating Shruti as revelation. The problem is about the translation, not about Shruti. The title of the book, published by ICPR. Look at the publication. I didn't bring it because to carry the weight. I wanted to exhibit before you. A publication comes out with the name of the institution which is publishing it. Is it not one of the surprises that we have today? If a book comes out of CIF, the title page, the book name, the author, and then there should be the institution which releases the book. We have to claim ownership, at least for publication, if not for the content. No. The title of the book is Reason and Experience in Indian Philosophy. That Bina Gupta, the lady, in fact, she studied under or with Revati Madam. Revati Madam. Her name is, the author's name, author. I don't say authoress. Bina Gupta. And I was curious to see. I'm not able to see you, Swami, that's why I moved to the right. I was curious. I read the preface very carefully, because at least in the preface, the author will make a reference to the institution which has taken the responsibility to publish the book, thanking the institution, though not the individuals in the institution. Even that is not there. What a book. I think that Ishvara will claim responsibility for issuing a reprint of the Veda. Certainly he will claim responsibility. It is though not my composition, that is my publication. I take the responsibility. I am sitting tight. Every time a new edition comes out, I take the responsibility. I see to it that there is no alteration in the text. It is proof free, error free. Therefore, there is no need for proof editing or anything. All that he has to do is release a new edition. Now, we conveniently say that it is apaurushaya, not paurusheya, not a work due to somebody, some person, human or divine. Ishvara also is not the author. There we accept, we go with the Mimamsaka. It is Anadi. How many creations have taken place? We don't know. We don't know. It is not worth investigating that problem. So the problem here is, the Veda says that there is God. We have also the text. Read the third sutra. Atato brahma jigyasa janmadhyasya yataha sastra yonitvat. The third sutra, which refers to Shastra and the source of the Shastra, Shankara gives both interpretations. That we know Ishvara through Shastra. And we can also reverse and say, the Shastra is authoritative because it is the composition of Ishvara. It is a work connected with Ishvara, not the real composition, whatever it may be. Similarly, here in the case of Udayana's argument, there is this problem. Now, the scripture says that there is God. And supposing you ask the question, how am I to accept the evidence of scripture, the statement of scripture? Then Udayana would say, don't you know, it is a composition of God. Whose composition? God's composition. Therefore, the argument proceeds, or apparently proceeds, in a circle, what we call circularity in reasoning. If you want the expression chakraka. When A is questioned, you answer it in terms of B. And when you begin to question B, you fall back on A and say, oh, this is because of A. Circle in reasoning. How do you know that there is God? Because of the Veda says so. How can I believe Veda? It is the composition of God, Ishvara. They say that there is really no circularity. There is a defense on the part of Udayana. Now it will be complete. Then you can complete. There is no circularity because God's existence is not dependent on the Veda. The Veda also does not seek the help of God, Ishvara, in order to convey its content. Only if the existence of the Veda and Ishvara, both of them are mutually dependent, there is circularity. The existence of the Veda depends upon God, and God's existence depends upon Veda. There is real circularity. God, Ishvara, exists independently of the Veda. The Veda may exist with regard to, dependent upon the existence of God, but certainly in conveying its material, in conveying its content, it does on its own. Something like that they give. And The moment you begin to take this kind of an intellectual exercise, you are always in a very uneasy ground. Very uneasy ground. A problem which you cannot accomplish, however try you may. But we go on trying from time to time. Time to time. And the Vedanta system tries to escape some of these problems because that the Vedanta system, as Mahadevan used to say, it doesn't stop only with a theistic position. We go beyond that. Trans-theistic. And we travel in such a way, in a parallel line, from the micro world and the macro world. You can deny anything, but can you deny the self in you? No. You can deny anything, but there is such a world which should have a cause. And then you go and examine what is it in you and what is it in the world. Probably we can find an answer. And an answer which will require you to abandon your metaphysics, your logic, epistemology, and also your moral exercise and all that one at a time. Come on. Who? Who? They means who? Yes, all the Vakyas are there. The Mahavakyas are part of scripture. I don't know how they would interpret the Mahavakya Tatsamati or Aham Brahmasi, whatever it may be. They accept scripture wholeheartedly. There is no indecision or halting or anything. I do not know how exactly, because whatever may be the way in which the Nyaya system has developed, so far as the liberation of the Jiva is concerned, it is in 100% agreement with Vedanta. That is why I said that Shankara, in his commentary on the 4th Sutra, Samanmaya-adhikarana, he pays the greatest tribute to Gautama. Nyaya Upabrahmida Sutram, Acharyena Pranita Nyaya Upabrahmida Sutram, Janma, Dukkha, Janma, Pravritti, Dosha, Mithya-jnana, all of them plural, Mithya-jnananam, Uttarottara apaye, Tadanantara apayat, Apavargaha. The causal chain is so good. And Shankara says, highest tribute, Acharyena Pranitam. There is no problem. The description of the world, physical world, we are not so much worried. It is a kind of so that is what I will also say with regard to the Vaisesika theory of categorization. Descriptive metaphysics. They enumerate, classify, analysis, and then give. There are only 7 substances, 7 dravyas. So we will give you a classification and all that one. But the final goal is the same. I don't know whether in the life of Udayana or Gautama, it is the Nyaya that will predominate, but something else that will predominate. And there will be the Ishvara Bhakti and all that one. I stopped here.